While driving skill is the key to your success in F1 2020, there is another tool available that can have a big impact on your performance. Today, we're talking about setups. Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well today. My name is PJ and today we'll be talking about tuning setups in F1 2020. I'll be showing you how they work, why you might want to use them, and how they can improve your racing experience. If this is your first time here and you want to learn how to get good at racing games, I have several guides available. You can subscribe to check them out, but for now, let's get started. Formula 1 cars are the most advanced racing machines in the world, and every single aspect of a real car can be adjusted to allow the drivers to go faster. In F1 2020, this tuning aspect is similar, in that dozens of options are available for tweaking your car's performance. The main reason to use a setup in F1 2020 is to extract those final few drops of performance out of your skill set, by building a car that drives the way you want it to, allowing you to go faster. A good setup will impact how easily the car turns through a corner, how the tyres wear out over a long race, your top speed on the straights, and more. Whenever you're in the garage, you can tune your car from the car setup screen. Here, you can choose from a number of pre-built setups, load ones you've already made, or go all in and tweak everything as much as you want. A common misconception amongst many players is that a setup will magically turn a driver from a backmarker into a world beater, however this is far from the case. As implied by the term, tuning is a method of refining your performance, not overhauling it entirely. The best tune in the world is of no use to a player who spins out of every corner or misses every braking point, which is why it's important to first focus on building your driving skill, and when you're ready, explore tuning at a later date. If you need help with various aspects of driving, I have several guides available, so check them out after you're done with this video. Another reason to focus on your driving is that in order to feel the difference each setting makes to a car, you first need to be able to drive to a consistent pace, setting multiple laps within a few tenths of each other. That way, when you explore various setup options, you'll be able to tell that it was the setup that allowed you to go faster through a particular turn, rather than hoping you simply drove the corner properly this time. As mentioned earlier, the goal of a setup is to allow the driver to use all of their skill on the track. This is done by having a car they feel confident in driving or more comfortable with over a long distance. Every driver handles the track differently, and having a car that is in tune with their driving style is the key to unleashing their talents. Before we dive into the car setup screen, let's first look at the options you can change while you're out on track. You don't have many options here, but you do have enough to impact how the car behaves. First, we can change the brake bias setting on the fly. This allows us to change the balance and braking performance between the front and rear of the car. I'll cover this in more detail in my braking guide, but essentially, the lower the number, the less often the front tyres will lock up. Next, we have the on-throttle differential setting. This manages the difference in rotation speed between the inside and outside rear tyres, and more importantly, how the car itself rotates when you're on the accelerator. Likewise, I cover this in more detail in my traction control guide, but in short, a lower setting will help you put down more power on corner exit. Third option to adjust is our front wing downforce setting. You won't use this as much as the other two, however it can still be useful in longer races. This change only comes into effect when you make a pit stop, as one of your pit crew will adjust the wing for you while the others change your tyres. When I'm racing, I like to move this up by 1 point as I switch to a different tyre compound. If I'm going from the high grip soft tyres to the lower grip hard tyres for example, I want a little more rotation through the corners, so I up this setting before I change tyres. Before building your own setup, it is worth exploring the setups that F1 2020 provides out of the box, as for many players these will be enough to have an enjoyable experience, especially in single player. On the car setup screen you will have 5 options to choose from, ranging from a high grip, low speed setup to the complete opposite, a car that can go fast in a straight line but struggle in the corners. Choosing the right preset can give you a very good baseline to tweak manually later, so it's worth giving each of them a try and seeing what feels best. What I like to do is to start with the default and then drive that on fresh tyres for 2 to 3 laps, pushing as hard as I can to set a good lap time. With that baseline set, I then return to the garage, put on another set of tyres, switch to the increased downforce setup and run again. If the time is faster, I'll try out the maximum downforce setup next, and if it isn't, I'll try increased speed. Once I've tried out all 5, I will know which one is fastest and more importantly, which one feels the nicest to drive. The preset you go with will largely depend on which track you're racing on. Some have many long straights which emphasize top speed, whereas others are very technical where high downforce is more important. Here are some presets I'd recommend trying out to begin with, but ultimately, this is something you need to experiment with on your own, as everybody drives a Formula 1 car differently. Unlike in the real world, where copying another team's car is a great way to start an argument, setup sharing is actively encouraged in sim racing, and in F1 2020, this is no different. With a massive community of players willing to help each other out, it's easy to find setups for almost every car, track, weather and session type. There are many websites and YouTube videos dedicated to this craft, and if you're on Steam, you can use the Steam Workshop to grab setups as well. There is also a tool in-game to give you a complete setup with minimal effort, the leaderboards. In Time Trial, head to the leaderboards and look up any player. If they used a custom setup for their fastest lap, you should be able to download that setup and apply it to your car. From there, you can tweak it and save it as if you made it yourself. This is a very useful way to grab setups quickly, however it is also very risky as time trial setups come with their own challenges. As the name implies, time trial is a test to find the fastest players in the world, and in the interest of providing a fair playing field, many things are normalised so that everybody has the same experience. Allow me to explain. In time trial, your tyres are always in perfect condition, your fuel never runs out, you're given full battery deployment at all times, the track is providing optimal grip, and more. This is great for getting the maximum performance out of a car, but if you use a time trial setup in other game modes you may run into problems very quickly. The first reason for this is that with the ideal conditions of time trial, players can be more adventurous with their setups. You don't have to worry about tyre wear when your tyres are always in perfect condition, whereas in a normal race these extreme settings will degrade your tyres faster than Lewis Hamilton's front left at Silverstone. One more thing to consider is that in time trial you're hunting for the one perfect lap. The top players are on the very edge of control and will likely run hundreds of laps in failed attempts to get the one run that counts. The car doesn't need to be good all the time, it only needs to be good once. In a normal race, this setup may cause you a ton of issues, and you may find out that you're driving slower than when you're using the default setup. It is possible to convert a time trial setup into a race setup however, but unless you have an intricate knowledge of car settings and your own driving abilities, you're best off starting with the presets and building your own setup from there. A common question when making changes to a car setup is to ask, what do I change to stop the car from spinning? As mentioned before, your driving ability is the most important thing to get right, but that doesn't mean you can't tweak a few things in the car setup screen to take the edge off the car either. If you're losing control in medium and high speed corners, take a look at your aerodynamics and increase the rear in relation to the front. If you're already running maximum rear wing, lower the front a little. If you're losing control in low speed corners, take a look at your suspension. You will want to soften the rear in relation to the front, so that the back of the car squats down more and applies more grip. You can do this by lowering the rear suspension setting, lowering the rear anti-roll bar helps too. As you build up the knowledge of how to tune a car, you'll begin to realise that there are multiple ways to solve a problem, and properly diagnosing said problem is also important. One tip I picked up a long time ago was to fix the end of the car where you're having the problem, and it has served me well in several racing games. Now that you know the most important aspects of setting up a Formula 1 car, check out the video on the right, which goes into great detail about every setting, or watch another video from my channel on the left. In the meantime, subscribe for future videos, thanks for watching, and good luck in your next race. I'll catch you all again soon. Farewell.